It's a clinker!
Oh, let's talk about ubiquitous blood groove.
Cannot die. I see. There is no life in the void. Only death.
Alright, so, well, I did say blood groove, but that's just because it is a colloquial term for a fuller. Now, a fuller, let's take this little small ninja katana. If you see right there, that's a fuller. Now there's two, all it is just a groove. In blacksmithing, most of your fullers are made with a tool like this. Now you can use this as a spring fuller. Earlier on, they might have used rollers, a guillotine. When the steel's hot, you can just put two pieces of bar in between the steel and smack it with a hammer a couple times, and it'll do it. Another example, this is another fuller right there. This one is cut. These tongs, these handy dandy tongs, I don't know how well you can see it, but you see this little notch right here? I don't know how well you can see it. There you go. That little notch, that is also fuller. Now then, on a blade, now, on this sword, I did not make this, by the way. On this sword, now, you see here, I do believe, yes, this is a forged-in fuller. They took a tool similar to this, and then smacked it with a hammer before quenching, before the heat treating. You see how that fits? Right there in that groove. Now, I light fires, and I hit metal with hammers. Okay? So, here we go. And any kind of abrasive, really. And you would, as I said, cut the fuller into the material. Now, there are two reasons for this. Now, if you're cutting in a fuller, what you're doing is you're taking weight from the blade. If you're forging in a fuller, or a blood groove, colloquially, you're it could be both decorative and it could also be functional. Now, a forged-in fuller is functional because steel is, and metals in general are, in fact, crystals. They have crystals. So, fullers and torque resistance. And this is specific to a forged-in fuller with a tool like this. Now then, a forged-in fuller provides a modicum of torque resistance, because anytime you introduce a crease or a crack, that becomes a stress riser in the blade, and that increases the likelihood of it snapping at that specific point. Structure, and it's not like, flipping that crystal structure like this piece of chert, but it does have a crystalline structure, and it will shatter, and it will act more or less like glass to an extent. Now, The reason I say torque resistance is because torquing, steel does not like to be torqued. It does not like to be twisted, that is to say. That is why you can have a, let's say, a grade 8 bolt, and you over tighten that sucker, you're going to rip the head off the screw with just hand tools. That's why when you're forging and you're making your twists, you have to heat the steel up to make your twist, otherwise you're going to snap it. Makes sense? So, same thing in here. The sword, when it enters at a target, on a thrust, specifically, or on a cut and it gets deflected off a bone or whatever, um, it's introducing a torque. Now, your narrower blades with a stiffer spine can probably handle that to a reasonable extent. Your broader blades that are flatter, with a flatter profile from the ricasso up towards the point and all along the distal taper, you'd want a forged and fuller if you could get one, because that would redistribute some of the torquing forces away from the spine of the blade, and additionally, lateral strikes or lateral parries and stuff like that. It just spreads the it spreads the shock out a little better because it's catching it on the ridges of the fuller and not on the direct spine of the blade, so it's spreading it out, that sort of thing. Now, if you take a fuller, and that's pretty much the purpose of it. Would blacksmiths in the Middle Ages really know what was going on? To an extent. Um, they would know things that they can observe and reason out through logic and critical thinking, um, much like anybody else can, as long as they're looking at it long enough. Stuff like this. That's why tempering became a thing. Somebody clenched a, somebody finished the blade, clenched the blade, and then, who knows how it happened. Maybe they stuck it next to their forge for a little bit because it got a little too cold in their estimation, or it cooled down a little too quick in their estimation. They wanted to warm it up a little bit. And it could have very well, spring steel could have very well came about because of an accident like that. So, or just blacksmith playing around. What does this do? What does that do? Because, even in the modern day, even if, modern forge, stuff like that, you got blacksmiths that will still sit around and say, hey, what does this do? Well, let's find out. Let's heat it up. And that's how a lot of this stuff comes to be. And the advantage I get to think about stuff like this because I got a forge. My forge, let me show you around, is if I can pan the camera around, I'll give you a better look a little bit. My forge, as you can see, there's not a whole lot of difference between my forge and something that you would find in Europe in the 1200s or Japan and in the 1100s, China, ever since the finding of iron. So the only difference is that I've got an impeller blower, and back then it would have been a flange um, bellows or piston bellows or something along those lines. That's really that, and most forges would be either at ground level or on some sort of earthing setup. Clinker shows are just going to be little bits of speculation. So I'm not going to. So I could be wrong. I could be right. But if you guys want to research it and find out and get back to me, hey, I don't care. I hope you enjoyed this clinker, and I'll try to do a few more of these before I have to head back out on the road. This is Chucky Smith.